had to decide what we were going to talk about. Well, you know, in this book, as well as others, it talks about people, what would you like to know? And I thought, well, maybe they'd like to know about, you know, we traced our family back through the Funks. We were some of the first funkiest people. But anyway, I would tell you, in 1733, Frederick Funk left Germany with his wife Sarah to come over here. And the name of the ship that they came on was called the Pink Mary. It's so loud.
Okay.
And she gave birth to Adam Funk. And she lost her life in the child on the way over. I thought, well, maybe that'd be a good story. No, they probably wouldn't be interested in it. So we moved on and talked about, well, Adam Funk II. That wasn't really his title, say, but he was number 2. Because his dad name was Adam Funk, and he was Adam Funk. But anyway, they wound up in Kentucky right after the Whiskey Rebellion took place. And they moved from Virginia to Kentucky following Daniel Boone in there. Within 5 years of the time Daniel Boone found the Cumberland Pass, they followed him into Kentucky and they settled in Bourbon County, which might give you a clue maybe what they might have done. People were taking their excess grain and they couldn't keep it, so they made booze out of it. Then the government, what the Whiskey Rebellion was about, was they wanted to tax these farmers on their booze. It's a lot easier to sell booze than grain anyway. Now, well, no, that wouldn't be the story you want to hear. So I thought, well, what about how did the Funks wind up in Illinois? And that's happened that Adam Funk II had 9 kids. Can you imagine? They didn't have television back then.
Yep.
And wound up with 9 kids. And the youngest one of those Funks was, in fact, my great-great-grandfather, Robert Peoples Funk. Oh, well, maybe I tell about the Robert. The 2 older brothers went to Illinois and found land, and they made money. But our relative didn't get in on much. He worked for his brothers. He drove. Can you imagine driving pigs to Chicago from the middle or down around Bloomington, Illinois to Chicago? Pig drive. Wow. But anyway, thank goodness it happened, because that's when he met his wife, Virginia. And Virginia, I could talk about Virginia too. Virginia's last name was Chesterfield. And if any of you ever have an idea you'd like to belong to the Daughters of the American Revolution, I never did. But you would qualify through her because her father, Captain John Stringfield, was the captain during the Revolutionary War. Young man in his 20s. Oh, well, maybe you'd like to go now. No, that's not it. We've got to come to something here that get your attention. I thought, well, maybe Elizabeth Funk, that's my great-grandmother. She was the one that was married to Tom McCann for the Civil War, and he marched off to fight with the Union during the Civil War. And then when the war's over, he never came home. So she married Charles Fenner. And then Tom McCann showed up again. I don't know what that does to our lives. But anyway, she stayed with Charles Fenner, and they had 5 kids. And there's quite a story about them. But I thought, no, that's still not what we're going to talk about. What about the oldest son that Charles and Elizabeth Fenner had? That was my grandfather. R.P. Fenner, the cowboy. They moved from Illinois. They got on Elizabeth's father, R.P. Funk, R.P. Fenner's namesake. But anyway, they got on the train at Funk's Grove in Illinois, just 5 miles south of Bloomington, loaded up everything they owned he took all his kids with him. Now, I mean, grown kids and their families, they loaded up on the train, and they all went to Wellington, Kansas. The neat thing about this is that R.P. Funk was 72 years old when he and Virginia led his group down here. Then they only let Mr. Funk, Robert Peoples Funk, only lived 2 more years after they moved down here. He buried down here in Perth, Kansas, out in a private cemetery. Rosalie and I, and Taylor Mary with us, we've gone by there, not every Memorial Day. But let's talk about R.P. Fenner, my granddad, the cowboy, who at age 14, when they got down here to Wellington and then moved to Caldwell, and he started riding the range and riding the trails, Chisholm Trail at the age of 14. Can you imagine that? And that's all he knew, was to be a cowboy. Once the trails got closed up, then he became and worked on some of the big ranches down here in northern Oklahoma. But what really helped us the most was when they closed the Cherokee Strip. I don't know if any of you know your Oklahoma history or anything, but they closed that strip. It's about 60 miles across down here, and I don't know, probably 30 or 40 miles deep. And they closed that. They bought the government bought the land. Of course, put screws to them again. But anyway, they bought this land from them, opened it up for settlement, and the thing that did to the Fenners and then to the Wellses was Granddad didn't know what to do. He'd been a cowboy all his life. He tried everything. He was a deputy sheriff. He tried farming with his mom. He tried all kinds of things. Then he got married finally about the age of 40. He was 42 when my mother, some of your grandma, 42 years old, he became a father. But we always say, think about the Cherokee change. They closed the Cherokee Strip, or we wouldn't have had it. Well, it's still out once you got it. I can tell you about being raised by him. We lived with him all the time. When we was growing up, lived behind his tire shop. But I thought, no, you know, really, the one that this is really about is our mom.
Molly.
Molly Wells. Amen. She was a wonderful person.
Yes, she was.
You see pictures of her up here. And she grew up working with her father in the tire shop, and they tell me that she could probably repair a tire as well as probably any man. And that's when you did it by hand. You broke the tire down, you sealed it and everything with by hand. They had tubes, inner tubes. How many kids know what an inner tube is? That was a tube that went inside the tire. But anyway, she did that. And but how many of you, how many knew Mom was a teacher? Yeah. How many of you knew that she worked on tires? Let me tell you something else about Mom. When Mom was growing up, and she's raising us, she had a lot of jobs.
Yes, she did.
You know, she was just a little gal raised up. She was born in Granville, Oklahoma. She was almost a Texan. That's how close Granville is to Texas. But she started school in about 1960. And she started in Wellington. And Mom went to school in Wellington for 1 week. Then Granddad pulled out of school and they moved to the big city of Mayfield, which is maybe 150 people just straight west of Wellington. The reason why grandmother was pulled, or your grandmother, my mom, was pulled out of school was because they come home from school one day and her cousin Marie told Granddad, "You ought to see Molly's new friend." She was a little black